To capture the amount and types of clinical services that we offer here at the Mailman Center would take several hours or perhaps even days. So we're going to do the best that we can to highlight some of our clinical services during this brief storytelling session. It's going to be exciting for us to showcase some of the different ways that we provide clinical services, some that are in traditional settings and others that are not so traditional settings. And I will say that our clinical services have served as local, state, federal, and international model for increasing access and engagement of children with disabilities and chronic illnesses and their families into services. I'm really excited to introduce this next panel to you. I've had the joy of partnering with each of these individuals in some way or another during my time at Mailman. And if there was a group of storytellers that could win the Loveliest People Award, it would be this group that I'm about to introduce. So our speakers today will include Kathy Vergara, who is the director of the University of Miami Debbie School, Len Maskill, who is the director of Auditory Oral Education Program and Ancillary Services at the Debbie School, Michelle Berkovitz, who's the Early Steps Program Director, Julieta Hernandez, who's in charge of social work here and co-leads our Promoting Behavioral Health Interprofessional Collaborative. And then also Dr. Eileen Davis, who's an assistant professor of clinical pediatrics and who has to put up with me probably more than she would like to. So the Mailman Center's long history of providing cutting-edge and high-quality clinical services began with the work of the Debbie School, the Early Steps Program, and what is now the Department of Genetics. Ranked as one of the top genetics programs in the country, genetics began as one of the first divisions of the Mailman Center, and their clinical services continue to offer families a home here at Mailman.
Will was diagnosed just before his 3rd birthday with Fragile X syndrome. It was something that we had never heard of before.
So Fragile X syndrome is an X-linked condition that causes intellectual disabilities in boys and autism. Could also affect girls. Fragile X is the most common inherited cause of intellectual disabilities. So genetics was one of the first division at the Mailman Center. Then we became the Center for Medical Genetics thanks to a donation of the Dr. John T. McDonald Foundation. Then we became an institute, and now we're the Dr. John T. McDonald Foundation Department of Human Genetics. The original director of the division was Dr. Herbst Labs. He also became famous and received the Kennedy Award thanks to his discovery of the Fragile X site for Fragile X syndrome. When we became a center, they brought Dr. Skip Elsas, who was my mentor, to run this new center. We had all the 3 labs, the biochemical, the molecular, and the cytogenetics labs here at the Mailman Center. Then we became an institute, and we moved out to be our own department of human genetics. The original Mailman Center Genetics Division included Dr. Paul Benke, Virginia Carver, she did prenatal, Magda Plewinska, Mariluz Labs, Paul Tocci, many other genetic counselors also. So Dr. Paul Tocci ran Jewish screening program for Tay-Sachs. We were the second one in the state. And then I actually started a program called the Victor Center for Jewish Genetic Diseases that we had here also for many years. Then in 2009, we founded the Fragile X Clinic, the only one in the state, thanks to funding from the state legislator, from J.C. Planas, and the Ex-Family Foundation from Rosie Perez and her group.
I decided that I wanted to help other families in their journey to find resources and help. And the National Fragile X Foundation approached me to come and meet Dr. Barbuth to establish a clinic here at the Mailman Center. The goals of the foundation is basically to sustain the clinic and help it along in any way it can.
So we're one of 36 clinics now belonging to the National Fragile X Foundation Clinical and Research Consortium, and we treat many families. We've been treating over 200 families with Fragile X syndrome.
Whenever there's a family in need, I recommend them to the clinic, particularly Spanish-speaking families, because it's actually the only bilingual clinic in the country.
So we have a comprehensive medical team, and we offer care from the pediatrics to the adults. And now we have also an adult clinic.
The doctors here are amazing. I mean, he knows this place like the back of his hand. And I've also been a parent contact for other families, so I've helped them along on their journeys too when they get diagnosed. And we tell them about our journey, which is life-changing.
We're part of drug trials now with psychiatry at the moment, but we've done a couple of drug trials too. So we develop the best clinical practices as well, and we're part of this consortium that is part of the whole country. We also have other clinics in genetics. One of them is run by Dr. Willa Thorson for the Down Syndrome Clinic, together with development. I think another big story to acknowledge is our involvement with newborn screening program. So Dr. Rodney Howell was the first chair of the Department of Health and Human Services, Secretary's Committee on Genetics and Hereditary Diseases and Conditions. Dr. Brosco then served as that, and Ophelia Alvarez just started to serve in that position as well. Dr. Pfeiffer is a long-time member of the Florida Department of Health Genetics and Newborn Screening Panel. I was part of that for a while. And we were instrumental to help other programs develop, especially South Carolina with the Fragile X with Dr. Bailey. We also had a big program here with nutrition and being part of advocacy for tandem mass and the screening for PKU, thanks to Shia Rarbach. And all of these, I think, put the seed to now where our department is number 2 in the country for research and NIH funding. Newborn screening and detecting conditions in the babies before they have symptoms can prevent morbidity and mortality. And again, the idea is to prevent the conditions before the baby will develop. Just to give you the example of SMA, it was a very hard clinical counseling to give a family, to tell them their child will die in the first year, versus now we say we have a treatment, the earlier the treatment the better. So now we're looking into that data to make sure that we can provide the treatment early, because it makes a difference. And we're following them a year later and they're doing pretty well. So it have changed their life completely.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Vergara, and I'm the director of the Debbie Institute. I started my journey in the early 1980s as a volunteer, and have been there ever since, and now I'm the director of the school. The Debbie Institute was established, as has been said before, by Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Howell, as a division of the Mailman Center in honor of Debbie Siegel, the granddaughter of Abraham Mailman. The Debbie Institute is affectionately known as the Debbie School and is a nationally recognized educational and research program for infants and young children with developmental disabilities. Many university students who have completed their internships and training at the Debbie School are now in leadership positions throughout the state and the country. These students all went through the LEND program that Michelle described earlier, the LEND training program. And now I'd like to talk about one of our special friends, Marta Weeks Wolf. Her commitment to the University of Miami and the Miami community was immeasurable. She was the former chair of the Board of Trustees, the first female chair, donating countless hours of time and treasure. One of her favorite projects, which is little known, was the Debbie School. And in 2015, the Weeks Educational Center was established in her honor. The seeds for this endeavor were planted in the early 1980s when Austin Weeks donated funds to support our program for children with hearing loss. For over 40 years, the Weeks family legacy has changed the lives of over 1,000 young children with hearing loss enrolled in our auditory oral education program and children with disabilities enrolled in our Birth to True early education program. Marta's legacy will always be a part of the heart of the Debbie School. We are forever grateful to the Weeks family for their generosity. In the 1970s, Diane Bricker, well known for her research on early intervention for children with disabilities, was the director of the Debbie School. Her research project conducted at the Debbie School was designed to investigate the efficacy of early intervention for children with disabilities ages 3 to 5. These photos, the previous photos, are example of her work with children at the Debbie School. The pilot program became the first pre-kindergarten program for children with disabilities in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and now has approximately 177 classrooms throughout the school system and serves approximately 2,000 children every year. So you can see how in a research project at a demonstration school like the Debbie School can ultimately end up serving thousands of children. Our collaboration with Miami-Dade County Public School has continued through the years through ongoing contracts that began in the 1980s for children birth to 3 with disabilities and another for children with hearing loss. It is now my pleasure to introduce Lynn Mishkel, who's the director of the Auditory Oral Education Program.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Sorry. So what is now the Auditory Oral Education Program for children who are deaf and hard of hearing began with innovative research with tactile vocoders, devices that delivered the sounds of speech to the skin. Let's hear Dr. Kim Aller share the origins of the program.
We were able to formally initiate the Tactile Speech Project on the basis of a gift from Jerome Cohen and his wife Rita, which would have occurred about 1978, maybe 77 or 78. That got us going, investigating how one might use the skin as a method of transmitting speech for deaf individuals. Now, about the same point in time, cochlear implantation was beginning to occur. Nobody knew how good it was going to be, but we were investigating the tactile opportunity. And soon thereafter, in the early 80s, we began a program at the Debbie Institute, a model program for the Dade County Public Schools, the then Dade County, not Miami-Dade County, but Dade County Public Schools. And the way we started that was that we negotiated a deal with the Dade County Public Schools to have a model program that would use these tactile devices as a way of trying to inspire the kids to talk more. And Kathy Vergara became the director of that program right away. And over the years, what happened was that cochlear implantation became so effective that the program migrated from being an effort where the artificial hearing part of it was in the tactile realm to being a cochlear implantation implementation.
So, fun fact, my husband was earning his PhD at the Mailman Center with Dr. Aller, developing these tactile vocoders, so that's where we met. So 33 years later, here we are. So lots of good things come out of the Mailman Center. Little point of personal privilege. Another point is Jerry and Rita Cohn. They were so generous and instrumental in this program to help children with hearing loss listen and talk. From these successful outcomes, we established a Florida statute supporting auditory oral education throughout the state. This has resulted in grants from the Florida Department of Education to support more and more children across the state who are deaf and hard of hearing and their families. And that system change just keeps on going. And now it's initiated by our graduates. Here we have Theo Velez, a high schooler with cochlear implants. He's sharing a smile and a commitment to prioritizing hearing health with none other than Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala Yousafzai in his role as Cochlear Foundation's National Ambassador for the Achieve Anything program. Theo was able to benefit from the Mailman Center Division of Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Services. Dr. Robert Pfeiffer, who you've met today, takes the lead on the newborn hearing screening program that's implemented at Jackson Memorial Hospital, and the ongoing collaboration between this program, the Debbie Schools program, and the University of Miami Department of Otolaryngology's Children's Hearing Children's Hearing Program, too many letters there, the Children's Hearing Program. All of this creates a seamless system from the identification of hearing loss to intervention and family support. So I'd like to introduce Angelica Martinez and her son Mason, who wears a cochlear implant on one ear and a hearing aid on the other. And like Theo, they have used their experience at the Mailman Center and the Debbie School to educate others about the importance of early intervention for children who are deaf and hard of hearing.
My oldest one was born prematurely, so that caused him to be in the NICU for some time. And then my son was diagnosed with hearing loss shortly after we were connected to the program Early Steps. And in Early Steps, I was connected with a service provider. And then the service provider helped me with getting him evaluated, getting him tested, and just monitoring his progress. And ultimately in that I was connected with Lynn Mishko from the Debbie School, and she was able to, get Mason started in the auditory oral program, and ever since then, that's where he's graduated. He's an alumni from the Debbie School, and he's doing very well. He's in the mainstream program. He's in a gifted 4th grade.
Hi, my name is Mason, and I'm 9.5 years old, almost 10 in November. My favorite thing to do is soccer.
Thank you so much to everybody at the Debbie School.
And the audiologist at the Children's Hearing Program.
All the teachers, all the staff members, the directors, the service coordinators.
I have no limits. Thank you, Mailman Center, for helping me be the person I am today.
As you can see, that Mason participated and greatly benefited from being in inclusion classrooms at the Debbie School. He is now very successful in general education classrooms in the school system. Inclusion of children with disabilities in classrooms with children without disabilities began under the leadership of Dr. Rebecca Fuel, director of the Debbie Institute in the 1990s and early 2000s. At that time, the concept of including children with disabilities in classrooms alongside children without disabilities was very controversial. Parents of children with disabilities were afraid their children wouldn't get enough attention and wouldn't have the proper services that they need if they were in classrooms with children without disabilities. And parents of children without disabilities were afraid that their children would not progress because they would be modeling after children with disabilities. So it was a big deal at the time. There was Debbie School Center was the first in the country at that time to introduce inclusion, and none of those things happened. Everything has worked out beautifully, and we've continued with wonderful inclusion programs. Early research by Dr. Fuel and Dr. Gross, Dr. Michelle Gross, demonstrated outstanding outcomes for children who participated in these programs. Recent work by Dr. Daniel Messinger and Lynn Perry from the Department of Psychology has looked at the social interactions of children in inclusive classrooms at the Debbie School. The vest worn by the child in the slide has a Lena recorder, which provides information about child vocalizations, peer vocalization, and turn-taking. The UV Sense sensor attached to the vest tracks the children's movements. And as you see all the little triangles moving, those are early preschool children with hearing loss enrolled in a classroom with their peers without hearing loss. The pointed part of the triangle is where the direction the child is facing. As you can see, they're very, very active. Results have shown that peer interactions, back and forth conversation, is better for children's language development than high quantities of adult talking. This research is really critical research because if you go out into child care centers and classrooms or cause of community, very frequently you see the teacher doing most of the talking. And they're not encouraging, or they don't realize the importance of encouraging the children to talk with each other and how that will impact their language development. Also, peer interaction is a strong predictor of increased vocalizations and language development in children with and without hearing loss. There was a lot of question about including children with hearing loss in classrooms with typically developing children. And this research is showing that the children with hearing loss benefit greatly from being with role models and typically developing peers. Now we have a video of Jasmine Gonzalez, who is an employee at the Debbie School, and years ago she was one of our students.
Before I was born, I had a stroke in my mom's belly, and it affected my right side, my leg and my hand. So the doctors recommended my parents to Debbie School. I mean, they were new in the country, so they didn't know anything about help or anything. I began when I was 1 year old. And I loved it. I loved coming. Debbie School is like my second home. My mom used to tell me that even on weekends, I grabbed my bag and I used to wait for the van outside. And I had a best friend. Her name was Julie, and I used to play with her a lot. She was in a wheelchair, so I used to help her with some stuff too. I learned a lot. It helped me with a lot of therapy, because thanks to that, I feel better. I do more stuff on my own that I couldn't do. After that, I went to public school, and I decided, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher. I graduated with my associates. Now I am a classroom assistant. It makes me feel good that I helped them, yes, because it makes me go back to when I was young. Yes, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to work here and coming back again.
Jasmine is one of our most wonderful employees, and I always get emotional. The Debbie School, what are our next steps? The Debbie School will continue to impact children with disabilities through innovative teaching strategies. We'll expand research with children with disabilities, train future professionals, and connect with children, families, and professionals in our community and throughout the state. And most importantly, we will continue to support and ensure the protection and expansion of existing laws and systems established partially because of the vision of the Mailman family. Now, our next presentation will be about the Early Steps program. The Early Steps program evolved from a research project conducted at the Debbie School, another research project. The Infant Health and Development Project investigated the impact of high-quality early intervention. Positive outcomes led to federal funding of early intervention services for children with disabilities birth to 3, and influenced the adoptions of the Individuals with Disabilities Act Part D Early Steps program in Florida, which serves thousands of children in Florida. The Debbie School and Early Steps continue to work hand in hand to serve young children with disabilities. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michelle Berkovitz, the Director of Early Steps.
Before I begin to speak about the Early Steps program, I want to take a moment to remember Dr. Charles Bauer, who, through almost 50 years of incredible leadership, was instrumental in the establishment and continuation of early intervention services at the Mailman Center. The North Dade Early Steps program at Mailman Center is open to all families of children birth to 3 in the north half of Miami-Dade County at no cost to those families. We've been able to serve almost 4,000 families in this past year alone. Early Steps offers multidisciplinary assessments and coordinates early intervention services for infants and toddlers who either have significant developmental delays or who have conditions that place them at risk for a developmental delay. Our early intervention services are focused on Florida embedded practices and interventions with caregivers, our FLEPIC model. Within this model, providers learn to coach caregivers on strategies to support their children's learning and development during the family's everyday routines and activities. And we're proud to say that the SLEPIC model has grown from a demonstration project within Mailman Center and 2 other Early Steps programs across the state to being implemented statewide in all 15 local Early Steps programs in Florida. I'm excited and proud to share this video about the Early Steps program, and I'm extremely grateful to those families who participated and shared their stories about the positive impact that the Early Steps program has for their child and their family. The Miami-Dade North Early Steps program is an early intervention program for infants and toddlers with developmental delays and disabilities. This is a program where we provide evaluations to determine if children qualify, or if they're eligible for early intervention services, and help them to get connected with those services in the community.
It was unbelievable with Early Steps. They advised me many things, how to do the tum time, how to feed, how to breastfeed, the doctors had to go, and it was amazing because they helped me with everything.
We get the opportunity to help so many families across the community and really helping to set the stage for kids. One of the important parts we think about is we work with infants and toddlers. We work with them just at the beginning, and so for many families this is just the start of a journey ahead as they help to support their child. And our goal with the Early Steps program is to make sure that we're helping those families provide that foundation so they continue as their child grows and develops to continue moving forward, that they feel confident, that they feel comfortable, that they're able to support their child.
Early Steps para nosotros fue como esa luz que nos ha acompañado todo este tiempo desde que él nació. Le hicieron una evaluación, nos han enviado una terapeuta a la casa, ella nos guía sobre en qué se está quedando, qué es lo que más necesita.
En las herramientas que hay para poder incursionar este tema, ¿no? Que es tener un bebé con necesidades especiales.
I've been with this program for 45 years. Initially, the program was established in 1973 by Dr. Charles Bauer to assess long-term outcomes of high-risk survivors of the neonatal intensive care unit at Jackson Memorial Hospital. In the mid-1980s, the focus of the program changed to now including intervention as well as evaluations. As people realize how important early identification and intervention is, since 1989 to 1990, Dr. Bauer, along with several physicians from the state of Florida, a concerned parent activist from Miami-Dade County, Paula Lalinde, and the Deputy Chief Director from Children's Medical Services, Michael Capoli, worked very hard and lobbied to implement IDA Part C in the state of Florida. To assure the optimal early intervention services are available to all eligible infants and toddlers, not only in Miami-Dade County, but in the state of Florida. All their work paid off, and by the fall of 1991, the implementation of IDA Part C in Florida became a reality, and the program's name changed to Early Steps.
Es como encontrar respuestas. Es difícil primero aceptar que de pronto tu bebé tiene una condición diferente. Entonces, estás lidiando con el shock de que hay algo mal que anda en tu bebé. Y segundo, encontrar el apoyo y soporte emocional y que te ayuden a seguir qué pasos dar, hacia dónde ir, porque estás primero perdida con tus emociones y segundo, no sabes a quién acudir para ayudar a tu bebé.
Every child potentially eligible for the Early Steps program receives a service coordinator. That service coordinator stays with them throughout their entire duration of our program and just ensure with them that everything is going okay, that they're receiving the service and that our community providers are also involved and that everything's running smoothly.
Tenemos el acompañamiento también de la asesora de recursos para la familia.
And also the service coordinator will empower the family because early intervention is just the beginning. Our program is just the beginning of the rest of these children's lives. Starting early is going to save a lot of money at the end because you start from the beginning. So our legislators should know about early intervention. This program will help these children for the rest of their lives and to help our community, help other children as they grow.
Chloe started crawling with 13 months old. That is amazing for a child with Down syndrome. And she's learning, she's starting talking now. She's developing very well.
One of the biggest things that we're thinking about, how do we move forward with the program, is how do we make sure that our program really focuses on coaching families? And so that's one of the big pieces that our program was one of the 3 demonstration programs across the state to introduce the FLEPIC model, our embedded practices for intervention, for coaching for families, for making sure that families really have the tools to support their child's development.
I've been worried with so many things, but with early steps, everything's being so much easier, you know? I have no words to describe how thankful I am for early steps.
Beautiful, especially beautiful. I started my career here in the Mailman Center at the early steps back in 1999. As you heard before from Dr. Armstrong, in 1985, he was tasked by Dr. William Cleveland, Chair of Pediatrics and Associate Director of the Mailman Center, to bridge the gap between the child development and child health divisions of the Department of Pediatrics. This led to inclusion of children with acquired developmental disabilities because of chronic illnesses and treatment as a major focus of the Mailman Center. And you can see here that multiple collaborations and interdisciplinary innovations started across the years with that new focus. The first initiative was in pediatric hematology-oncology. Trainees began rotating with Dr. Armstrong and the HemOnc team in the care of children with cancer, sickle cell, anemia, and hemophilia. The behavioral and developmental program became fully integrated with HemOnc and included a parent training and education program, a school reentry program, neurocognitive evaluation of all children with ALL and brain tumors, inpatient and outpatient treatment for pain, nausea, coping with invasive procedures, treatment adherence, sibling support, and coping with end-of-life issues. Over time, the Mailman faculty, including Dr. Mark Bloomberg and current HemOnc psychologist Dr. Winsome Thompson, became actively involved in this program. Mailman faculty assisted in the design and implementation of the first pediatric bone marrow transplant unit, and Dr. Gary Kleiner was partially recruited to lead a non-malignant bone marrow transplant program for children with genetic conditions that led to severe neurodevelopmental disabilities or death. One of the earliest long-term survivorship programs in childhood cancer was started, and this integrated HemOnc program became a model for childhood cancer and sickle cell integrated programs across the country. Concurrently, Dr. Kathleen Limanek developed another integrated clinical behavioral program with the pulmonary division in the areas of asthma, cystic fibrosis, and allergy. She engaged trainees in adherence research and intervention, treatment of pain and distress, and end-of-life support. The HIV epidemic expanded to children who were perinatally infected. This program is also particularly important for me because I work directly with Dr. Scott, that you can see in the picture, and the wonderful psychosocial team there, and Dr. Ana Garcia, my colleague and mentor. When the HIV epidemic expanded to children who were perinatally infected, some of the initial clinical activity happened in the Davis School with Dr. Jeff Sapert, who led the efforts for full inclusion of children infected with HIV in the Davis School classrooms. So you see, everything is very holistic. Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Ana Garcia began a behavioral and developmental support program integrated with the Division of Infectious Disease and Immunology that involved inpatient consultation and support for end-of-life care. Dr. Susan Chalfin began a developmental evaluation follow-up program using Ryan White funding. Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Gwendolyn Scott collaborated on a seminal NIH-funded study that demonstrated a trajectory of decline in neurodevelopmental function in perinatally infected children. Dr. Carol Gay, one of our LEN trainees, was the first author of this seminal paper. The neurodevelopmental evaluation program expanded as the perinatal HIV grew and included the development of a model care program that was published and adapted in many other programs across the country. Dr. Alan Delamere developed another, who is here, an important collaboration with the Division of Endocrinology and Dr. Janine Sanchez to provide integrated care for children with diabetes. This program became a national model for care of children with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Mailman faculty have also been involved in developing the International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes Clinical Practice Consensus Guidelines related to psychological care of children, adolescents, and young adults with diabetes. Integrated behavioral health care within the outpatient diabetes clinic continues today at the Mailman Center and has contributed to Holtz Children's Hospital at UM-Jackson to be ranked nationally as one of the leading hospitals for diabetes and endocrinology by U.S. News and World Report for 11 years in a row. Trauma care. The Mailman Center also has a long history of serving trauma survivors, long and rich history. The domestic violence program started with the HEROES program founded by Dr. Robert Morgan, who I know is watching virtually, in the 1990s. That evolved into a contract with Miami. Actually, Dr. Morgan was sought out by the Miami-Dade County's Coordinated Victims Assistance Center and entered into a contract to provide these services. Our contract with South Florida Behavioral Health Network for the Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, project for children who are victims of violent crime started a few years ago. I and Dr. Jonelle Potter, who are shown in this video, in this slide, collaborate in a project, in the Thrive Project, which stands for Trafficking Healthcare Resources and Interdisciplinary Victim Services and Education. This Thrive program provides integrated perinatal health, mental health, infant mental health, and substance use care to pregnant women and young children survivors of human trafficking trauma. In 1992, following Hurricane Andrew, who will forget that one, right? The first pediatric mobile clinic was established. Initially intended to provide a medical home for children with no insurance coverage, the post-hurricane challenges quickly involved Mailman faculty and staff in providing developmental and behavioral services. And these integrated services continue today. You can see there the entire pediatric mobile clinic at the beginning, when Dr. Arturo Brito, the founding director of the Pediatric Mobile Clinic, was a member of the Mailman faculty, and he went on to be the executive director of the Children's Health Fund. Dr. Lisa Wynn, current director of the Pediatric Mobile Clinic and a member of the Mailman Center faculty, led early Mailman Center initiatives in telehealth and school health, which ultimately evolved into the current school health program that includes both medical and behavioral developmental components. The Pediatric Mobile Clinic and the School Health Initiative are two shining examples of Mailman Center clinical programs connecting and working with the community to meet vulnerable youth and their families where they are. At the end of most days, you can find the Pediatric Mobile Clinic parked in its home on the Mailman Center courtyard, where the newest Pediatric Mobile Clinic bus was unveiled in 2019. Now we are going to enjoy the video from the Pediatric.
Today is about our brand new mobile clinic. It is going to bring state-of-the-art medical care to our community, and we couldn't be more excited.
We'll be able to expand the use of telemedicine, which will provide new opportunities to connect patients with our U-Health specialists right here on campus.
We don't wait for children to come into a clinic or to the hospital. We need to go to them, where they live, where they learn, where they play, and deliver those high-quality health services. If you build it, they will come. May have worked for a ball field in Iowa, but when it comes to medical services, let's make house calls.
There are so many families that aren't able to have regular access to primary care, and being able to provide it in such a convenient way is an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up.
I can watch that video over and over and over again. It's so much fun. With support from the Health Foundation of South Florida and an ounce of prevention, Dr. Brasco and Dr. Armstrong implemented Health Spark. This program assessed needs of children in child care centers across Miami-Dade County and connected them with medical homes focused on supporting child care center intervention in the areas of dental care, physical activity, and nutrition. Funding for a tooth varnishing pilot for young children was part of this initiative, with the support of Dr. Dina Verone. The Craniofacial Anomalies Clinic was started by Dr. Seth Thaler as a Children's Medical Services program. This multidisciplinary clinic involved Mailman faculty in genetics, psychology, dentistry, social work, nursing, and nutrition, and ultimately became one of the only accredited craniofacial anomalies programs in Florida. Mailman faculty were also involved with pediatric bioethics related to solid organ transplantation, neonatal issues, and special consideration of children with neurodevelopmental anomalies or disabilities. Mailman Center leaders served as chairs of the Holtz Children's Hospital Pediatric Bioethics Committee from 1994 until 2013. Over the years, the Mailman Center has expanded its reach through a number of clinical programs serving children and families experiencing a broad range of psychosocial risk factors. In January 1980, the UM Child Protection Team was established, led by Medical Director Dr. Walter Lambert and Clinical Director Dr. Susan Dandies. The UM Child Protection Team is a multidisciplinary program that supplements child protective services investigations by providing expertise in evaluating alleged abuse and neglect, assessing risk factors, and providing recommendations for interventions to protect children throughout Miami-Dade and Monroe counties. Dr. Jean Hirscherin and Dr. Alan Delamater started the Behavioral Pediatrics Clinic to provide medical, behavioral, and social skills supports for children with ADHD and other neurodevelopmental and behavioral challenges. Over time, Mailman faculty and LEN trainees began participating as team members in the ACC West primary care and continuity clinics. Drawing from his experiences in CBT and behavioral pediatrics as a psychology trainee, your MC today, Dr. Jason Gent, partnered with Dr. Hirscherin to develop the Healthy Steps program, which has been continually funded by the Children's Trust since 2007. Healthy Steps provides early childhood development support to young children ages 0 to 5 and their families within the primary care setting. The program initially served 300 families annually, but starting this year, they will serve over 1,000 families each year within these 3 pediatric practices. With great vision and with generous funding from the Children's Trust, Dr. Gent, who at the time was a new member of the Mailman faculty, also established the Parent-Child Interaction Therapy program in 2011. What began as a small program serving a small number of English-speaking families per year in its one clinic at the Mailman Center has evolved into a program that currently provides services in English and Spanish to approximately 350 families of young children with disruptive behaviors and anxiety each year throughout Miami-Dade County, including community-embedded clinics in Little Havana, Homestead, Overtown, and Kendall, as well as an autism specialty clinic run by Dr. Megan Parladay in the Coral Gables campus. In 2016, PCIT was honored as a recipient of the Champions for Children Program of the Year Award by the Children's Trust. In 2020, building on its growing infrastructure of internet service delivery to further reduce barriers for families, the PCIT team led efforts in transitioning clinical services to telehealth delivery for programs across the Mailman Center and the Department of Pediatrics, as well as for PCIT programs nationally and internationally. On-demand and electronic resources were provided to thousands of PCIT clinicians worldwide, and our group even helped therapists in Japan transition their services to telehealth. The success of the PCIT program allowed Mailman faculty to secure additional funding to expand the scope and the reach of services. Since 2017, the Children's Trust has funded the Teacher-Child Interaction Training Program as an early childhood research demonstration project. Dr. Allison Weinstein's Parent Club, also a TCT-funded program, is a partnership with Be Strong International and Florida International University, which offers free parenting workshops designed to help families raise children that are successful, happy, and healthy. Parent Club served over 5,000 families in 2022-23 alone. And finally, Dr. Nelly Garcia's Team Coach, also funded by TCT, extends the reach and impact of the Mailman Center by providing evidence-based training, coaching, and support for dozens of trust-funded parenting programs throughout Miami-Dade County. In these next 50 years for the Mailman Center, we are excited to see how our clinical programs will continue to grow and evolve through ongoing commitment to innovation, connection, and impact.